The trade war has undeniably and officially kicked off now because the United States has taken an incredibly firm and uncompromising position against China. Now, this is a pivotal and historic turning point in global relations. What will the EU choose? Will they prioritize their economy and their people, or will they align themselves strategically with the United States? This is a very important point because if the EU decides to side with the United States, then our world will have a huge, clear trade barrier separating the West from China. And it won't just be China that suffers. The whole world will definitely be affected. Don't forget, Janet Yellen, the US Secretary of the Treasury, has also come out and stated very clearly in the media that she wants cooperation from the G7 to help build a barrier against adversaries, or the opposing side. They call it the wall of opposition, targeting China. And this is the only way, according to Janet Yellen, to overcome the flood of cheap goods being produced and dumped into the market. But if you ask how the people of Europe are doing in this situation, there have been protests all across Europe. This has been going on for 2 years now because all the EU countries have been sending money and military equipment to the United States to help Ukraine fight against Russia. But the ones who are suffering and becoming poorer aren't the Russians. It's the European Union. Their GDP has dropped, they've entered a recession, and now there's no more cheap oil. Production costs have gone up and prices are rising because of inflation. People just can't take it anymore because the country's income has gone down, but expenses have gone up, and those expenses are from sending money to support the war. People don't even have enough to eat. When the country's expenses go up, but income goes down, what the government does is raise taxes. But if you're just an ordinary person, how are you supposed to handle that? I get that paying taxes is a citizen's duty, but if you're telling me taxes are going to be raised and squeezed out of people when the economy is bad and there's barely any money in anyone's pocket, how are families supposed to find money to put food on the table? But knowing that the government is raising taxes just to fund a war, who wouldn't be angry about that? So let's take a look at just how important or essential these cheap Chinese goods are to the EU. Over the past year, the main imports from China to the EU have been plug-in hybrids, EVs, EV batteries, solar panels, and lithium batteries. Altogether, these imports are worth up to $23.3 billion. These are the key raw materials needed to produce EVs, and if the EU decides if they impose trade barriers on China, it means all these raw materials that used to be imported cheaply from China will become more expensive. And EVs in Europe, which already have high production costs, will get even more expensive. Europe will lose even more of its competitive edge and won't be able to compete with China on price. So if Europe puts up trade barriers against China and raw materials get pricier, the cost of producing EVs will go up, and they'll lose even more market share in the EV sector, right? Lose it to whom? Lose it to China, of course. Now let's go back to the previous chart. The 4 products I just mentioned used to be extremely cheap because Europe once had a major weapon, cheap oil from Russia, right? But ever since 2 years ago, when they had to sanction cheap Russian oil following the United States, they haven't had access to cheap oil anymore. So producing anything has become more expensive, which means those products made in Europe have seen their prices skyrocket, up to 4 or 5 times higher, peaking in 2022. The reason prices sloped down was because cheap products from China came in as raw materials to replace them. And you can see that China was able to do this around the same time. China managed to produce solar panels that used to cost about 25 cents and brought the price down to 10 cents, which is a 60% decrease. This made the cost of raw materials in Europe drop as well. But like I said, if we start imposing tariffs on China, all these raw materials will become more expensive. So it really comes down to a tough decision. What will the world actually choose? And this isn't the only tough decision Europe faces. There's another important issue, Russian money. Do you remember when Russia had $300 billion seized after attacking Ukraine? Most of that money wasn't in America. It was in Europe, with as much as $260 billion in the European system. As usual, Janet Yellen came out in the media cheering, saying, "Seize it, seize it." But now, when it comes to actually seizing the money that's in the European system, it's really not that hard. All the EU has to do is make a decision, and with just one click, they could easily seize the money taken from Russia. The real challenge is here. The EU needs to ask itself clearly if it's truly ready to seize Russia's money. Because if they do, Russia definitely won't just sit back and let it happen. Russia has a reputation for being tough. The more you seize from them, the more they'll seize back. So let's take a look at what Russia might do and what will happen next, so that Russia can seize some assets in return. Let's start with this part. Reuters reported that if the EU really does seize Russia's money, Russia said it would begin by identifying and listing out what European or American assets are in Russia. For the smaller companies, there aren't clear numbers, but Reuters did report on some of the big ones. For example, Citigroup has assets in Russia worth $10 billion. And then there's Goldman. They have about $1 billion, and that's not even counting the funds that are tied up within Russia. For example, Citigroup has another $7 billion tied up in Russia, whether it's through transactions, loans, or various other commitments. All of this money can't be taken out of Russia without official permission. As for the long-term consequences of seizing Russia's $300 billion, we're talking about the credibility of the entire dollar and euro system in Europe, which is valued at a staggering tens of trillions of dollars. So exchanging all of that stability for just $300 billion, it remains highly uncertain if it's really worth it or not. If they seize Russia's assets, there are definitely more questions to consider. Like I mentioned before, are they really ready to seize Russia's money? Because if they do, Russia is likely to escalate its attacks even further. And as for the money that was agreed upon within NATO back in 2014, every member country was supposed to contribute 2% of their GDP to support military efforts and back the war. They still haven't managed to bring Russia down, and if Russia steps up the aggression, will the money they've already contributed be enough, or will they have to send even more? Would that mean raising taxes on their own people if they need to contribute additional funds? That's why you see European citizens coming out like this. Protesting in the streets. It's actually pretty understandable. For example, when Russia first started attacking Ukraine, Germany immediately pledged 100 billion euros in aid. And this year, even as the German economy is in recession, Olaf Scholz has proposed an additional 30.8 billion euros in aid. So just this past year alone, Germany has already sent 7.1 billion euros in aid. And Germany, as you know, is an economic powerhouse, the strongest economy in the European Union. If Germany can't hold things together, then the entire EU could be at risk of falling apart too. When it comes to decisions made by world leaders or major countries, we can never really know what their reasoning is, what they're basing their decisions on, or what they stand to gain. But that doesn't mean we should slack off when it comes to digging for information about what they might do next, because this is extremely important information for us when it comes to making investment decisions. I know that finance can be difficult, complicated, and stressful for some people, but if we're going to be stressed about it anyway, let's at least make it easy to understand right here on the Sai Money Monster channel. That way, maybe we can all set out on the path to wealth together. Relax.